So I was up visiting my friend in Cleveland 2 weeks ago, and we went to this little store. I think it was called Big Fun, and they have all kinds of like really cool, just like random little knickknacks and like older stuff in there. And I came across the Star Trek section, and I found this, which is just the best thing ever. And it was only $8, so I had to buy it. And this is actually the first time I opened it because I wanted to save it for an episode for where I opened it because I was just so excited about it. So, I love these little figurines. I don't have any of them, but they have absolutely everything. If you go to like Comic-Con, they have just like a bunch of different booths that are selling. It's the best little thing ever. I love how huge his head is. Oh my god. So this is just gonna be one of those I'm wearing a Bon Jovi shirt while wrapped in a blanket videos because it's getting late and I just kind of want to huddle. But this is the first episode of the second season. It's called The Child. And it's the kind of episode that like it's really good for some reasons and it sucks for other reasons. So the episode, it has a lot of new stuff going on. It starts out with them meeting up with a ship to get Dr. Pulaski on board, who is replacing Dr. Crusher, because Dr. Crusher has gone off to work at Starfleet Medical, like the main one. So they pick her up, and then you see Deanna Troi in bed, and like this white little glowing light comes and like enters into her in a weird way. And then the next thing you know, she's pregnant. And everyone's like, oh my god, how is she pregnant? She is like a third the way through her pregnancy. And she's only been pregnant for like 36 hours. And her and Pulaski are trying to figure this out. And meanwhile, the Enterprise is on their way to a planet to pick up samples of this plague so that they can transport it to a Starfleet Medical Research Center so that they can try to use it to create an antidote to this plague which is raging on a different planet. So Geordi, who is now the chief engineer, is working on creating these containers to hold the plague. So that's kind of the subplot going on. So everyone has a meeting where they tell them that Troy is pregnant, and Worf is all like, we should abort the fetus, and Troy's like, I am having this child. And so she has the baby like a day later, and then all of a sudden it grows up to be like a 4-year-old kid, and all of a sudden it's like a 10-year-old kid, and she names it Ian, and they're like a little happy family, and Ian goes and plays with puppies. And meanwhile, they spend a lot of time testing these containers that are going to hold the plague, and they test them for like 20 hours, and they're okay, they're good, so they beam it on board, and they beam the head scientist on board, and they're on the way there, and they realize that one of them is losing containment and is going to start leaking and is going to kill everyone on the Enterprise, and they can't stop it, and apparently they can't eject it because eventually it might run into a ship or a planet and like infect the people, which makes no sense because like space is really, really big. If they eject this, the odds that it would hit something are so tiny. But so apparently it's better to let everyone on the ship die. So they find out that it's this peculiar type of radiation is causing that specific sample to grow exponentially, and that type of radiation is being emitted by Troy's weird alien child. So he tells her that he's the reason that they're all in danger, so he says he has to go, so he dies. And after he dies, a little light thing comes out, and Troy is like communicating with it, and she says that it wanted to know what being a human was like, so it decided that the best way to do that was to go through the life process, to be born, to live, and to die, and then it ends. And so like I said, this episode, it's good just because it's the start of the second season, and when I was looking through the episode list of the second season is actually really good. So they have a lot of good elements, like Geordi's chief engineer now. They introduced that in like one of the very first scenes. And so they have a lot of scenes in engineering with Geordi, which is cool. I really like Geordi as chief engineer because they actually have a place on the ship now. They introduced Guinan, and they have 10 Forward now. So while this is going on, Wesley is preparing to leave to go join Beverly. And throughout the course of the episode, that he decides that he wants to stay on the Enterprise, and he asks Picard if he can stay, and Picard says, yeah, it's fine, you can stay on the Enterprise by yourself. So he goes in and talks to Guinan about it, and Guinan has her little Guinan thing going on. Like, I really like her. I think she's a good addition. Just overall, the show starts to improve a lot in the second season, which is awesome. Which it gets so much better. I'm actually a lot more excited to review these episodes because we have stuff like Measure of a Man, which I love, the Icarus Factor, which I really like. You have a ton of really good episodes. You have Q Who, which is where the Borg shows up. So the second season as a whole, I think, is pretty strong. I remember not being a huge fan of Pulaski just because she's not Beverly, so I'm kind of going to see how that goes as we go through the second season, because I am interested to see if I actually didn't like her as a character or if it was just because I wanted Beverly to come back. So it'll be kind of cool to see how that goes. But overall, the second season is a lot better than the first season. But in the same way, like, this episode, it's just not that good. I think that if you are making an episode about Troy, it seems like in the show, none of them are that good because, like, they don't know how to write Troy. Like, Deanna, I feel like she could have grown so much more as a character than she really did. It's like, okay, we have this woman character. What could happen to her? Oh my god, she gets impregnated by an alien. And then later on, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to have another episode about Troy. What's going to happen? Oh my god, she gets, like, psychically raped. It's like, you can't come up with any other stories. Like, Beverly has some pretty good episodes later on. But I feel like Deanna, like, she has some, but she never has really, really strong episodes about her. And that bothers me. Because, like, in general, like, there's only 2 women main characters in the show to begin with after Tasha's gone. And if they don't even get good episodes about them, and they're not even part of the main bridge crew, really, it's just, like, it's something that bothers me, personally, because I think that they could have done a lot more with her character. I mean, that being said, I think that she did a good job in this episode, but it's just, the whole thing was kind of weak. And I feel like they spent a lot of time on the containment vessels for the plague. Like, you have Geordi discussing what they're going to look like. He has, like, a little model. He has, they bring the scientists in charge of them on board to inspect them, and he's literally inspecting them for, like, 14 hours. Like, there's a couple different scenes where, like, okay, I want to inspect him. Then they have a scene of him inspecting him. And they have a scene later on of how much longer is it going to take. It's like, I still want to look at them some more. And it's a decent part of the episode is dedicated to this, and it gets to the point where it's like, okay, they're perfect, nothing can possibly go wrong, and then it goes wrong. And it's just like, I feel like they spent a lot of time setting up a very elaborate backstory just to have a reason for Deanna's weird alien kid to put them all in danger so that he would have to die. And I feel like they could have devoted a lot more to what was going on with Deanna during this process, and they wouldn't have had to put so much time into this weird subplot that wasn't even really a subplot, because they end up delivering it, and the scientist is like, we may never synthesize a cure, but it's a step in the right direction. And it just seemed like the parts, like the fact that she's having, like, this weird alien kid who's basically a clone of herself. He's half human, half betazoid. There's no other genetic material present. It's just, like, her, like, producing asexually. And she's totally fine with it. There's nothing that says, like, okay, this is weird. We've never seen this before. You have Worf, who wants to abort it. You have Data, who wants to study it. You have Riker, who's like, I don't mean to be indelicate, but who's the father? It's like, Riker, like, obviously, we just went over the fact that we don't know because she's, like, a third of the way through her pregnancy and it's been, like, a day and a half. And it's just, I don't know, like, it's such a weird plot point. It's such a weird plot in general. And they never really even get into it that much. And then, she has a kid and he goes around playing with puppies and she, like, makes him food. And they're, like, a little normal family. And then he dies and then she's just like, thank you for visiting us. And then he's gone, and it's my cat's annoyed. But other than that, like, other than the fact that I think that they could have, if they wanted to go with this plot, they could have done a lot more with it. The second season as a whole, I think, is good. and I am really excited to review it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Excuse me. So I hope you guys will stick around to go through this with me. And as always, thank you for watching. And this is my impression of how Riker sits down in the chair. Yeah, we're gonna have to run a level 1 diagnostic there.